The Mandalorian Season 2 is over. It's done. It's also dumb. Hey, I really love The Mandalorian. I enjoy the ever-loving hell out of it. Even though the final episode has a lot of problems, I really enjoyed it. Not as much as some people though. But it's understandable why some people have this reaction to a character which they've been a fan of since they were kids. The issue is when they let their biases get in the way of their judgment of the craft. As long as they're not doing that, it's completely fine. It's really refreshing to have Star Wars which looks and feels like Star Wars again, something which tries to respect what came before and not trying to tear it down. We had Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7, ignoring those horrific episodes right there. We had Jedi Fallen Order, which was a pretty basic story, told well, just with some very weak side characters. And we finally have The Mandalorian. For quite a while now, there have been a few things about The Mandalorian that have been really bothering me. One of these things is his bloody armour. It doesn't work for a narrative story, it doesn't work in continuity, or even logically. What's different about The Mandalorian Season 2 is how much it draws attention to his invulnerability. In Season 1 it was a lot less obvious. He only really got hit a few times, and he made sure to avoid getting shot.
That range, Beskar held up.
In Season 2, he stands out in the open, getting shot at by an army of stormtroopers and nothing. If it wasn't bad enough that we have a protagonist that is blaster proof, he's also lightsaber proof. None of it even scratches the armour, which begs the question why he was so focused in remaining behind cover in the first season. It seems like he's only just realised he's invulnerable in Season 2. Not only does Beskar contradict the continuity the show is actively drawing upon, but how can we even create tension in a story like this? In the Ahsoka episode where the Mandalorian is having a standoff with, whoever the hell this fuckwit is, we know the guy can't even scratch him, so where's the tension exactly? He can stand out in the open getting shot at by an army, he can have his head slammed into a wall repeatedly, despite the fact in Season 1 he nearly dies from a hit to the head.
I need to remove your helmet if I am to save you. This is a Bacta spray. It will heal you in a matter of hours.
He can also get struck repeatedly by a lightsaber after being taken by surprise. Twice. He can also get shot some more and be totally fine, and so can Bo-Katan. I don't really know what Moff Gideon was really expecting to do here. In most stories with a powerful protagonist, we have powerful foes who are difficult for the protagonist to combat to allow for tension in the story, or at the very least are a threat to the protagonist. In Star Wars we already have an established power level with the Jedi and their lightsabers. To combat the Jedi, we have the Sith. What combats the Mandalorian armour in the Mandalorian show? Even if you get two Mandalorians in the same room fighting, we just end up having a Black Panther situation where you just have two people fighting in suits which make them both invulnerable. Neither of them can really harm each other. There isn't even a downside to the armour being invincible, like making it heavy would be an obvious one to put there. At least with a powerful offensive weapon like the lightsaber, you can have two people going at it, and there is still a sense of danger because they can actually hurt each other. Even with Captain America's shield, it doesn't make him invulnerable even though vibranium is incredibly durable. I've already heard defenses of the armour saying, it makes sense that Mandalorians would be invulnerable to lightsabers because the Mandalorians are the historical enemy of the Jedi. I'm sorry, that's not an explanation. There is no through logic or reason why it reacts this way. This isn't even a defense for the continuity or the narrative problems the armour creates. The lightsabers are a beam of pure energy which burn hot enough to cut through most objects with ease. The only time I can think of a lightsaber having difficulty was in The Phantom Menace, cutting through those massive blast doors, but that's because the metal was really thick, and that was hardly stopping them.
They are still coming through. This is impossible!
Why would Beskar be any different? It has to be melted to be forged, and I'm pretty sure a lightsaber burns hotter than this little flame. I highly doubt Beskar melted a temperature hotter than a lightsaber, and if it did, the melted stuff would be fucking glowing and burning through everything like a lightsaber. Then you need something which is going to be able to handle the molten Beskar, and if it's hotter than the temperature of a lightsaber, we just end up having a paradox of new materials which don't melt at that temperature. The lightsaber is just far too much of an extreme. It's insane to have something with a melting point higher than something which cuts through everything with ease. And we can see the Beskar heats up after prolonged contact. It doesn't bend, it doesn't even scratch, it does nothing. This part here is probably a lot hotter than a lightsaber right now, as the heat is constantly being transferred from the lightsaber, while they're connected, which is heavily suggesting it's the melting point of the metal which is making it lightsaber proof. The only thing we have seen deflect a lightsaber in the past are electrostaffs, which are energy deflecting the lightsaber, not the metal itself, which does make sense that an energy could deflect a lightsaber blade, similar to how energy in the lightsaber blade deflects others. This armour also fucks up the lore as well. It used to be that Mandalorians kill Jedi with skill and by outsmarting them. They work their way around their abilities with flamethrowers, sonic pulses, and other gadgets. This is much more badass standing up to a powerful being with skill, rather than inventing invincible nonsensical armour. I've already heard people say, well, Cortosis was lightsaber proof, but yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have encountered a whataboutism. I have a video talking about those. This whataboutism I do bring up in that video. This whataboutism is assuming that Cortosis isn't also stupid. At best, it just shows that the criticisms are also applicable to Cortosis, which does not invalidate what I'm saying. Also, quick question, how do the Imperials wipe out all the Mandalorians if they're wearing invincible armour? It's never really explained in the show, it's a little confusing. This does not fix the narrative issues with the armour, but in terms of continuity, the best explanation I have heard is that the reason why Beskar can deflect lightsabers and blasters is because of its purity. It's referenced in the Mandalorian Season 2 final episode. The problem is that the purity of the Beskar has never been brought up in the Clone Wars, in Rebels, or even the Mandalorian until the end of Season 2. They could have easily explained it at the beginning of Season 1. All they would have to do is reference the purity of the Beskar ingots, which were taken from Mandalore by the Empire. And all they'd have to say is something like very few are rare to have Beskar this pure, or something along those lines. However, it doesn't work perfectly, because why would the Death Watch not be using pure Beskar? It's not exactly like the rest of Mandalore using it. And this is before the Empire nicked all the stuff. Considering how rare it is in a Mandalorian, it would make much more sense that they were mixing other metals to stretch the supply of Beskar. So, while it does make more sense to explain it with purity, it doesn't fit perfectly. I feel like it's important to bring up the invalid criticisms about the armour in this video, because I have seen these going around, and as much as I think the armour is broken, I do not think these criticisms apply. I don't really take calling the Mandalorian armour plot armour seriously, as it seems to be more hyperbolic to say how invincible it is. It isn't actually plot armour. Pretty much all protagonists in fiction have plot armour, because they can't die until the story needs them to. Plot armour becomes a problem when it starts to break the audience suspension of disbelief of what the protagonist can survive, or when it becomes a little bit too convenient that something happened to allow them to survive. Specifically with the Mandalorian, it establishes that his armour is invincible, so it does not break the suspension of disbelief of what he can survive, as everything the world throws at him hits his stupid fucking armour. As I said before, it ruins any kind of stakes, conflict or tension, but it's not plot armour. You can't literally have physical plot armour in the story because it's not plot armour, it's just armour. Plot armour is a non-physical entity by its very nature, as in the armour in the plot is protecting the protagonist because they need them to be alive in the next scene for the plot to continue. I have also seen people conflate his armour with Rey's Soonest like it's somehow on par. No, it ain't. There is a difference between a specific attribute of Rey's character, which is her Soonest, making the world constantly bend around her to appease her, and making a character wear something which makes them invulnerable. The world bends around Rey, while it does not bend around the Mandalorian. A better way of putting it is, the Mandalorian is an invincible brick walking through the world, while with Rey, the world is bending around her. There is a difference and one is much worse than the other. Rey's Soonest is also from her character, which is affecting the world and the story, whereas Mando's invulnerability comes from his armour. His armour affects the tension, stakes and conflict by making them null, but it is not affecting his character. You can still have a good character and develop them, even if the stakes and the conflict are ruined. The problem in The Mandalorian is that they just kind of forget to do anything with his character after the first 3 episodes. Despite several opportunities to actually do something with him, he loses everyone he knows in his entire life, and nothing. Or they could have him exposed to new ideas after he learns he was part of a cult his entire life.
You do not cover your face. You are not Mandalorian.
He's one of them.
And you are a child of the Watch. Children of the Watch are a cult of religious zealots that broke away from Mandalorian society.
But no, they don't do anything with that either. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how I would represent Beskar in The Mandalorian if I was showrunner, and I had to make it blaster-proof. Again, I would explain the strength of the armour being based on the purity of the Beskar used to forge it, and I would make it blaster-resistant, but not blaster-proof. Let me explain. There was a detail in the original trilogy on Boba Fett's armour. This dent. In the Clone Wars Unfinished episodes, it was going to be established and explained that this was a result of the final standoff between Bane and young Boba Fett. In my interpretation, using this as a reference, even though you can survive getting shot, you don't want to get shot. It would not be a guarantee, and I would make sure to show this by showing Mandalorians dying from blaster hits, or at the very least getting injured. You could also have Mando get hit and he barely survives, but even if you do survive, not only does the blaster hit you with some force, which is enough to knock you on your ass, but being shot slowly wears down your armour. Denting it makes it more and more vulnerable, and you also could say it weakens the strength of the whole armour, like a crack in real armour. There is no way I would accept it being resistant to lightsabers, that is just too far. In certain scenes you can have the Mando react by hearing the lightsaber sounds and dodging out of the way just in time, using his senses to narrowly avoid danger instead of just being invincible to them. If you need him to fight Gideon, then you make him use his smarts and gadgets. It's much more difficult of an obstacle for the Mandalorian to overcome because one wrong move and he's sliced bread. I don't know why Favreau or Filoni or whoever the hell came with the idea of making their protagonist invulnerable, why did they think that would be a good idea? Especially when they're not even trying to get around his invincibility. After this, I don't know if there's anything else left to say about the Mandalorian's armour for now. It's broken, it doesn't work logically, it fucks up the stake tensions and conflict. I am more than happy to listen to your thoughts on the Mandalorian, especially with his armour, in case you think there's anything I've missed or I'm wrong about anything. Anyway, thank you for tuning in and listening to me rant about The Mandalorian. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more of my content. If you really want to support my hard work, then I would really appreciate donations to help pay off the investments I've put into this channel. All this really is not cheap. If you want to support me with donations, then you can do a one-time donation through Streamlabs or support me through Patreon. Both are in my description. Thank you for watching, and this is Shiny, signing off.